Good morning. I hope y'all have your coffee or water, or I have my big cup of water this morning. So I just want to thank you all for being here. Tell you a little bit about what makes me, I guess, qualified to talk to you about searching for jobs digitally. I have been kind of on all sides of the recruiting spectrum, from sourcing candidates to recruiting for candidates, to being the hiring manager, to of course being the job seeker. And I kind of want to share with you some of the things that I've heard from, it's funny as you talk to people that are job searching, some of the rumors that they hear or things that they, you know, heard somebody tell somebody. And so I just want to share all that with you because I know it can be really overwhelming with all of the things that are out there. Um, as a young person starting out, and then also I know several people that, especially because of this year, who are job seeking for the first time in 20 years. And it's so different from, boy, when I started recruiting, we would go to college career fairs and we would gather stacks and stacks of resumes, and we'd take them back and scan them into this like machine that was as big as a closet, and then they would go into some system. But it's all digital now. And so I'm just here to talk to you a little bit about what that means, and kind of give you the secrets and the insides from the other side. And what makes this a good presentation is if you have questions along the way. So please feel free to put that in the chat. I can see um, either whether you're watching through Facebook or YouTube, those comments will come up so I can see them. So as you have questions, just jump on in. Um, the first thing I want to talk about a little bit is what you need to get started. And the first thing is a branding statement. And I'm sure that most of you have gone through this in some of your classes and practice this. But a branding statement is a great overview of your strengths and your passions, why you're seeking a new position, and what you bring to the table. And so I call that also your elevator speech. So always have a great, concise elevator speech ready: who you are, what strengths you bring, and why you're looking for a job. And then the second thing is a rocking resume. And I know that most of you have probably done some resume stuff in a class, but here's what I want to talk about, and it's really important, especially for those of you that are in these types of communications programs. Is there's probably a reason to have two resumes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. But have the one that shows off who you are, what you can do, but then you'll also need a plain text resume, and we'll talk mostly about why you need that plain text resume. And then the last thing is an updated LinkedIn profile. Most students I know that are just coming out of college aren't really on LinkedIn or don't have a strong LinkedIn presence. But that's going to be really important because when I sat in the corporate world and I worked with recruiters, we paid thousands and thousands of dollars for those recruiters to have LinkedIn recruiter licenses. And so when we had a hot job open, that's the first thing that a recruiter goes to besides their own job board. So LinkedIn is a very, very important tool in your job search. And you can, it doesn't matter how many connections you have at first, just get your presence out there. And you can use it again as your resume as you're applying for jobs, if you have a good plain text one that can upload and that it understands it. And I'm speaking to you mostly if you're the type of person who has a really cool resume with lots of graphics and pictures, and as you apply for jobs, those things, you upload it and then you have to type everything over and over and over again. It's probably because those systems are reading that as a plain piece of paper, or a paper with lots of text boxes and graphics, and it just throws it out because it doesn't know what to do with it. So even though it looks pretty, the system doesn't know what to do with it. Sometimes even bullets get jumbled and it throws it out and doesn't know what to do with it. So it's very important to have a very plain text resume. I have seen a few students come in and show me their resumes with, graphics or pictures, and those are awesome. And definitely, I would have those when you meet someone in person to give to them, or if they say email your resume to show what you can do. Definitely, definitely keep that really nice graphical resume. But when you're using the systems, we're going to talk about this one on the right. It's very important to have that plain text resume because as you put it into systems, it will read it and it will pre-populate some of those things, and you won't have to go over and over again retyping. Here's what I did at this job, and here's what I did at this job. So it's very important, like I said, to have both kinds because I think the one on the left shows your uniqueness and shows who you are, probably shows off what you can do with layouts and images and graphics. And again, that's perfectly acceptable when you're emailing it directly to the company or to a person, or if you're showing that off in person, actually handing it over to someone. And I would recommend a stronger paper. In the olden days, they used to have like resume paper, so that would be an awesome way to do that. Is that on that harder cardstock paper? Um, but again, for systems and when you're applying to systems, use the one on the right. Any questions so far? Just want to see if anyone is on. It's hard to do it in this virtual world. I'm very much a people person and I really enjoy interacting with the audience. So the more you talk, the better I feel about speaking to a screen. How do you start a resume when you don't have a lot of experience? That's a great question, Destiny. One of the things that is important to do is show off your skills as far as what education and classes you have taken. So, if you are a communications major, or let's say you're a marketing major, and you're applying for your very first marketing job. Well, when I was in college at Wichita State, I worked at Target. So I used some of the skills and experiences that I worked at Target that would apply to the job that I was applying for. And then also, of course, the skills and education, maybe even a specific class that applied to the job that I was applying for. Anita asks, what's more preferable, a one-page resume or a two-page resume? And I've seen both. And I've seen both too as a recruiter. If you're a student starting off and you don't have a lot of employment history, a one page is absolutely fine. And I've had people tell professionals that are 20 years into it say, "Oh, you need to have a one-page resume." Well, gosh, I've been in working for 20 years and there's no way I could fit all my experiences onto one page. So two-page is absolutely acceptable, but make sure that you are concise and they're not task oriented, like here's what I did, here's what I did, here's what I did. It needs to be accomplishment oriented. So here's what I did above and beyond any other person that's ever held the supervisor at Target, frontline supervisor Target position. I did it better than everybody else because. So here's the accomplishments I achieved. Um, but again, it goes back to both. Now, I could also make mine 5 pages because of all the things I've done, but you want to cut that off at about 10 to 15 years, or definitely when you get into things that are not relevant to the jobs that you're applying for. Yeah, it is hard to fit experience on one page, that's for sure. Sydney says, do you recommend using a photo of yourself? Absolutely not. I know some companies that use resumes for unbiased screenings. I I I as a recruiter, when I saw pictures, I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to see this because you are supposed to be unbiased. But I know when I was recruiting internationally, everybody in Europe put their, and they call it a CV. Um, they would put their picture on the CV. So definitely not in the United States. I would definitely not. Now, if you are doing a broadcasting position and a headshot is appropriate, maybe that's the time that you would have your picture on your resume. But otherwise, I would not recommend that. Hannah has a question that I can't see because it's low. She says, could you reiterate when to use each resume? Yeah. So the one with graphics and pictures, that's when I would when you're handing it to someone, or when they say, please email your resume to, Susie at careers.com, definitely use that graphical resume to show off what you can do. But the plain text one will be the one that you'll use as you are uploading it into a system. So we'll get into that now. When applying for jobs, there's two places to go. One is the company job page. So that would be like kochcareers.com, krogercareers.com. That's the company's job page that they're putting their jobs out there. And then a job aggregator is one of these systems that goes out and spiders all the other systems, all the job board, all the company job pages across the land, puts it into one place. So, oh, and I did a mistype. I see there. It says Indeed. It's supposed to be Indeed.com. So Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, those scrape for free all the job career pages across. So I might be out there looking for an HR recruiter position. So I'd go to Indeed and I'd say, I'm looking for an HR recruiter position. And then every morning or every week or however long I put in that I want to pop up, it'll show me those kind of careers in Wichita, Kansas. So it'll say, here's what you can see. And so that's an aggregator where it scrapes all those jobs. And I keep a tabs on the market a little bit. And so I have things coming in from Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter. And it's funny because some of them are earlier than others. So I might see something on Glassdoor a week before I see it on Indeed, although they're supposed to be scraping all the time. So it just depends. A company's job page is where you're looking for and applying to a very specific role. So I'm looking for an HR recruiter role at Kroger for Dillon's. I'm going to be a nationwide recruiter. So I go into KrogerCareers.com. I don't know if that's the real thing. I'm making things up. But that's where you apply for a specific job. And then also I can sign up for their community site. So most of these big companies, they'll have a community site where I'll say, please notify me when you have different HR positions open. So there's kind of two things to do on that company specific job page. On the job aggregator side, that's again where I'm going to put my resume up there so that recruiters can search for me and that I'll tell them what I'm looking for, and those job aggregators can search the web and give me specific emails every day. Best places to find a job. Yeah, so again, that's going to be if you have your site set on, let's say I'm looking for an HR recruiter job specific to banking. So I might go see if there's some banking specific career sites, but definitely Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor. Those are places where I can say I'm interested in an HR role at a bank. But then I would go directly to Intrust, Emprise, the banks here that are local, and make sure that I'm signed up on their job sites. So it depends on what you're looking for, but the more your digital presence is out there, the more opportunity that you have. And I would say be careful because I've heard a lot of it seems like kind of scammers. They'll say, "Oh, well, if you send me $50, just like anything else on the web. If you send me $50, we'll get you in as an entry level salesperson, and you can do this and that." And so, be wary and make sure that you're always researching the company that you're applying to. And sometimes, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So I always double check the company. So if I see a company I'm not really sure what that is, and it says HR director of HR for this fabulous company I've never heard of, I'll go to the job page and say, what is this company? What does it do? Is it really in Wichita? Am I going to be looking for or virtual supervising somebody in Timbuktu? So be leery too. Um, Drew asks if you want to make a resume for somewhere not in America, should you use a picture? Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know all the rules internationally. I know there's different privacy laws, especially in Europe. So again, if it seems appropriate, I would do it. You can also always research. They don't have the same privacy laws, but they have a lot of different privacy laws. Again, if it's in broadcasting or something where it'd be appropriate to do a headshot, I would definitely do a picture then. JC says, after applying, um, when do you recommend to follow up with the company? And if you do that, what can you do to stand out? Ooh, I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But as you apply for a job, let's say, let's go down that KrogerCareers.com, and I'm going to apply for the HR manager role. So then I go to LinkedIn and I start following Kroger and seeing what else they're doing. Then I can always look on there. Is there anybody from Wichita State that works there? Is there anybody that I know as a connection that works there? And always, always, always reach out and say, hey, I Craig, I see, remember me? We went to college together, or maybe someone you know really well. Hey, Craig, I just applied for this job at your company, and I do you think I would be a good fit, or what would help me stand out? So definitely, as you network and as you grow your presence on LinkedIn, the more connections that you have, the more it will tell you who you know at that company, or who you may know that knows somebody at that company, and the more things that you say about yourself. I went to Derby High School. I went to Wichita State. I got my MBA here. Um, it could say, oh, Susie went to your MBA program, and they are someone that works there. So there's all kinds of ways as you network digitally, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Would you recommend, Drew says, would you recommend Indeed and sites like that for people who are new for jobs rather than direct job pages and don't have a lot of job search? I say both, all. My son is a freshman at Wichita State, and he was looking for some work, right now between the break. And he looked at retail jobs on Indeed.com, put his resume there, found that was easiest because then every time he found a job, he could just hit link, apply with my LinkedIn profile, and it would push all that information in instead of retyping all the job experience that he had in high school. So, and that was just for, a seasonal retail job for right now. And so he's at Kohl's. So that was a great way for him to find who was hiring. Now, also, maybe you're someone, he was really kind of wanting to get on at Cabela's. So he went on to Cabela's.com. He loves fishing and all things outdoors. So he had also created the profile there so that they would alert him if they had open positions. So the Kohl's thing worked first. So I would say the more that you're out there, the more that you're networking, the better opportunity that you have. Kaylee says, what is one of the biggest red flags that come up during an interview or even the application review process? What's something you highly suggest? Oh, yeah. So if you Google it, you'll see a list of things that you should never say. So things like, well, if I'm looking for childcare while I'm doing this, or talk about your personal situation, and they're not allowed to ask you that either. But I think another red flag for me is I was doing college recruiting with someone who had zero job experience. We would rather take someone with a 3.5 GPA that had, held a job all through high school than someone with a 4.0 that had never had job experience. So my advice is fit some kind of job in when you can, where you can, because someone that's held a job with a not great GPA will always be picked over someone with a 4.0 that's never worked a day in their life. That's something that I've seen. Kaylee says, do you have any experience moving somewhere and you never had lived and you have to start from scratch? I don't have experience there. I've grown up right here. But another thing you can do, and especially right now, is when you're searching for jobs, a lot of people I know that are out of work right now are looking in Wichita, Kansas, and then also for virtual positions. And so if maybe you're moving to Nashville, so you can start right now looking in Nashville, and you could go to Indeed or LinkedIn or Glassdoor and type in, Nashville, Tennessee, and it would give you jobs specific to that area. Um, Michael says, how important is a cover letter when applying, or does it depend on what the company wants? Yes, it depends on what the company wants. As a recruiter, I have never, ever in my entire life read a cover letter. Never. Because I've always worked at high volume roles where I'm lucky to look through the whole resume. So I would say it's not important unless the company is asking for it. So some jobs, as you apply, it has a place for a cover letter, but it's not required. And so I know people that are killing themselves making all these different cover letters as they're applying for jobs. And I'll say, gosh, I never, as a recruiter, I've never read a cover letter. So if they're not requiring it from you, I wouldn't waste your time on it, especially unless you have a generic one that really is, a great, concise show of your skills and what you bring. And I wouldn't recommend doing it that way, because I have only seen success with a cover letter specific to the job that you're applying to. So if it's in my case, in HR, there's, recruiters, there's talent development, there's, someone that oversees comp and benefits. And you would want to tailor that cover letter to very, very specifically to the role that you're applying to. So I would not recommend a generic cover letter that just talks about you and you use it all the time. So I'd say it's very, very specific to the job that you're applying to. I'm going to move on for a little bit and then thank you for asking great questions, because this makes it way more fun for me when you're asking questions than me just flipping the slide. I'm going to talk to you for a minute about the company job page. So I've gone to KrogerCareers.com or KochCareers.com or SpiritArrowCareers.com. And there's a couple of things you can do. So that top circle says, I want to view all the open positions. So I would put HR in there as my category and Wichita as my location or whatever I'm looking for. Or if you're open to moving, you might just look for all those locations. And then you can see at the bottom where it says, if you're not ready to apply, so maybe I look at HR jobs and there's nothing there, but it's a company I really want to look into. So it says connect with us for general consideration. That means you are not applying to any specific job in their company, but you're giving them your resume so that you're searchable. Because I guarantee you, they are looking just as hard for you as you are for them. And so if you get in their database and they can do some searching, or they can notify you when a job, they can't automatically, that's my favorite word. They can't automatically apply you to a role that matches you, but they can notify you and say, "Hey Jenna, this job came open and matches your resume. Are you still interested in looking?" And then you can apply. So always when you see that, they call it their community site or their community group or connect with us for general consideration. That's They're inviting you to leave your resume so they can contact you if they find something that matches. How do you recommend presenting your portfolio when applying online? That's a good question. A lot of times there are places for attachments, especially if it's some kind of thing where they do want to see some of your work. That's where you can upload it. Or if you keep things on a website, a lot of times I'm helping quite a few people right now in their job search. And gosh, I think 90% of them right now are asking for a URL. So if you have a website that you store some of your stuff, or if you have a LinkedIn URL, you can definitely leave that information there and it will point them to a site that shows off all of your work. So great question, Morgan. Um, I know there's another one from Morgan. Might be the same. Right there, it says StreamYard is showing. Yeah, okay. So we'll move on. That's the company job page, and then the other one again is the job aggregator. So this is directly from Indeed.com. So there's a couple of things up in the top left. I can find jobs, so that's where I'll start searching virtual HR positions or HR positions in Wichita, Kansas. You can see up in the top right it says upload your resume. Again, this is where that plain text one comes in handy because it will upload and pre-populate all your information. It'll say your current role is this, your last role is this, and when you start applying for jobs, it'll say list your duties or give an overview of what you were doing. So all of that will translate into the jobs that you're applying to. So it's always good to upload your resume. And as things change or as you have another job, make sure that you're always keeping that current, and you can do that as often as you need to, redo or update your resume on those sites. And then you can search on the job title keywords, company, and remote. So it says where. So some of them say work remotely or work from home or virtual. You can type in, it depends on what you're searching for, but a lot of these have these options and you'll start to see that. Um, Again, post your resume. So it's there's 15 ways to get to Chicago. You can either upload your resume at the top there or post your resume. They're begging you, put your resume up there. And then you can start searching for jobs. Another thing, a good tip is, if you're looking for a marketing role, let's say, you could say marketing specialist, and then you could just say marketing, and then you could say something very specific to the marketing role that you're looking for. So again, don't be disheartened if you just put marketing manager in there and nothing comes up. There's 15 ways to get to Chicago. So keep trying and keep searching. And even when I was looking for a role, I would have HR, human resources manager, HR manager. I mean, there's the lingo of the positions that you're looking for, so you can try it, and have your searches active with several different titles, and you can have several different searches going at the same time. So what questions do you have about the job board versus the job aggregator? Joe says, what are some ways to personalize a cover letter but still maintain professionalism? Yeah, that's a great question. So let's say I was applying for a job at my last role was at Koch, and I was the regional manager for talent development. And it had some very specific skills that was required of me for that role. So if I was to do a cover letter for that role, I would take some of those requirements of the job and directly answer them. So let's say it said must have knowledge of designing curriculum for development of future leaders. So I would say, in my experience, I have done, I did something at Spirit Aerosystems where I, trained new managers on how to run the computer or whatever. So as you personalize those, it's not personal like telling them personal things about me. It's personalizing it to the role that I'm applying to, directly relating my experience to the role that I'm applying to. So that's what I mean by personalizing it to the specific job. Colby asks, if you're going into sales, which industry do you think is the best to have a long career? Oh, I can't answer that for you. It seems like, a lot of people I know in sales are very successful. And so whether you're selling, you know, marble, granite, constructions, materials, or you're selling cars or you're selling real estate, I think if you're a successful salesperson, you're going to be a successful salesperson. I might not be understanding that question right, but I think a good salesperson can do well uh, in any industry. I mean, we can't foresee what's going to happen. Who would have known? In my coaching clients right now, it seems like my clients that are in construction have done better in 2020 than in anything else. And that's because construction was deemed essential this year. So, and most people are at home going, man, it's time to redo this kitchen, or I need a new bathroom floor. So, I wish I had a crystal ball and then we could all make some good money there. Um, I have a question about cover letters still in common. Again, I would only do it if they ask for it, because like I said, I have recruited at 5 or 6 different places in Wichita and I've never read a cover letter, even when they were attached. So I would Google it, and there's very specific things, tell them who you are, tell them why you fit that job, and then close with a strong, this is why I am hands down the candidate that you need to talk to, and really sell yourself. And that middle paragraph, again, make it very specific to the requirements that they're asking for on the job page, on the job requisition. Um, Danny says, what are some of the most sought after skills? See, I'm not in the journalism department or field, so I can't answer that for you, but I can, when you do some research, probably Google is your friend there. That's where I always go first. Make sure that you're whatever you find that they're looking for, that's exactly what you need to highlight on your skills and resume. And I think I've slide to this later, but it's not, recruiters are looking again for you just as hard as you are looking for a job. And there's no secret recipe to how to get noticed. The secret thing is, as they have their requirements and then they have their preferences for what they're looking for, those requirements, that's what they're looking for. That's exactly the skills. That's exactly what and sometimes it's skills specific to the role that you're going to play, but sometimes people will put in there the core values of their company too. So integrity is important to us. And so as you're writing a cover letter or something specific, even on your resume, you might change it up a little bit. Again, taking, when I was in college, I worked at Target and I was looking for HR roles. So, and I had never had an HR role. So as I was applying to different jobs, when you look at those requirements, I would highlight different things I did in my supervisor role at Target that applied to the skills and abilities and things that they're looking for right there in the job requisition. Because again, it's not a secret. They're telling you exactly what they're looking for. So highlight what you have done that matches those skills they're looking for. Amber says, "What's the best way to sell yourself?" Same answer. You go and when it has that requisition and it says we're looking for an outgoing individual who can blah 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 blah, you directly put on your resume or on that cover letter if they ask for it. I am an outgoing, customer service oriented professional who loves to work with customers, da 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 da. So I would always say your resume is the answer to their question, which is their job requirements. Other ways to increase the impact of a cover letter. Again, as a recruiter, I never used one, but I would, the impact would be something that directly answers the requirements that they're looking for. Joe says, I feel like the look of my resume is bland. You know what? If you are, I'm gonna jump back to this one. If you're putting it into systems, you want it to be bland. That's part of my real resume. I kind of just shrunk it all into one page, but you want it to be bland because you need that system to read it and show it. Now, if you're looking for something graphical, and again, as a recruiter, 20 years in recruiting, guys, I have never, ever, ever been handed one that looks like this. Of course, I've been in, engineering and IT and manufacturing, so they have no reason to have, something pretty and graphical on theirs. I've never been hiring for a marketing person or someone that would need to be showing off their artistic skills. So this is one, that I am not familiar with, and it might be specific to the industry if you're looking for a creative role. Um, I saw one recently that just really separated graphically some of the experience. So this was a college student, and she had the the places that she had worked. She pulled their logo in, and anyway, but she was the one that was having trouble saying, gosh, every time I use this, I have to retype everything I do. And I said, well, that's because it's not plain text and it's just looking at it as pictures and throwing everything out. You might as well be uploading a blank piece of paper. So I think standing out is really using this plain text version, and those bullets under each role that you have held need to be accomplishments, not tasks. So let's go back to my front lane supervisor position. I'm not going to say that I opened the registers every morning and then I close the registers every night and then I trained cashiers. I'm going to say that I was accountable for, the correct money. I was the best in my group at training new hires or onboarding new hires on how to, be the best cashier they could be. And I would highlight the accomplishments that I had as a supervisor rather than the tasks. That's another way to have that stand out. Brianna says, I've been told to put my resume on bright piece of paper to make it stand out, but I'm thinking that's unprofessional. My opinion is if you're handing it to someone um, at, for a very specific role, maybe I would say no. I would say the hard paper, the cardstock type resume paper is a great way to stand out. I wouldn't put it on colored paper, but that's just me. Um, how can I sell myself when interviewing virtually? We're going to get into that. So hold that question. Um, and then Travis says, when it comes to categorizing your resume, if you have multiple degrees in different fields, is it wise to list education accomplishments first or work history and work experience? Okay, that depends. So if you are, let's see, so I apply for HR jobs and all my schooling is um, business management or an MBA. So of course I'm going to put my experience in HR first. If you are someone who doesn't have experience, but you have the schooling, I would put the schooling at the top. So always the most relevant. Um, when you have, uh, my husband's an engineer, so I know a lot of people have been in manufacturing and then they go back and get their degree and then they're looking for the engineering position. So in that case, I would put the engineering schooling. If I was applying to an engineering position, I'd put the engineering schooling at the top, and then I would put the experience that you have that's relevant to that position underneath it. So I hope that answers your questions. We'll move on. Um, let's talk about LinkedIn for a little bit. I know that college students, this is probably the last social media platform that you're on. So if you're new to LinkedIn, when you open it up, this is the kind of thing that you'll see. But you'll, of course, sign in first and then start building your story and telling who you are. This is mine. Um, Tab is a role that I play facilitating small business owners. So I have a very professional backdrop. And this is something I would recommend. I have a close friend who was recently laid off and um, worked with a great big huge company that helped him through getting through the layoff and updating all of this. And they told him, his was blank and it kind of has some dots and lines, and they said, oh, I wouldn't leave that generic like that. And he's a computer engineer, and they said, put something back there that has to do with what you're looking for or says who you are. I mean, I'm not a family picture probably, but a little about your interests, or there's so many free images. Or if it's something maybe that you've created, you can put back there as your backdrop. And then a very professional looking headshot is important, something with good lighting. I would not recommend a selfie unless you are like a plus selfie game kind of a person with the light ring behind it and all of that. But I would make sure that it's a very professional, very bright, um, good picture. So the headline, you can see under my name, it says I'm a business owner, a strategy leader, team developer. So this would be very, very important descriptors of you. So um, marketing major, uh, team player, whatever you want to put that really describes your headline. And that comes up a lot of times, even when you're commenting on other people's stuff. So, and some people just put their current position. So, HR manager at Koch Industries is what mine used to say before I was um, out on my own. So this would be descriptors of you, and then your current position. Um, you can see it's not it's not on here, but that also comes up. And if you are not employed, you could say currently seeking a role in da 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 da. Da. So if you don't have a current position, or and I'm not saying like if you're the front lane supervisor at Target and you're looking for that first professional job, still you can put that. I'm a supervisor of people, motivator of talent. When you start to go on to LinkedIn, you can see people put some really fun, much more creative than I am, stuff out there. The about section is a little place where you can again, that branding statement, or what strengths, a very concise story about who you are, what strengths you bring, and what kind of a role you're looking for. So do this in the first person. So I am a professional, I am an outgoing, goal oriented team play, all the buzzwords. But that's where you can put your elevator speech of who you are and what you're looking for. And then skills. This is something that recruiters use to search. So if I'm looking for a French speaking communications major that can do some project management work, that's exactly the 3 words I'm going to be searching on. So make sure that, and you can put lots and lots of skills, and then have your friends endorse you for those skills and they come higher to the top. But again, recruiters use that to search for you. So be sure to do that. Accomplishments, if applicable. And then be sure to put the open to work feature. I did this for the screenshot because I'm not actively looking for a role, but I could do this to show you what recruiters see. So you can't see anything. If you go to my profile, you won't see anything specific to looking for work. But if you have a recruiter license and you're searching in LinkedIn, you would be able to see that I am uh, open to these kinds of roles, and you can fill that out. There's also, I believe, a banner. There's a lot of people that are out of work, and it's like a green banner that goes under this circle that says open to work. or open to new opportunities or something too. So if I could see someone that I respected and I worked with a long time ago at Learjet, and they're looking for a specific role that I have open, I can connect those people. So anything that you can do extra to say, I've also seen some great commercials that people do about themselves. They'll say, hey, I've, new to the market, new to job seeking, and this is what I'm looking for. I've been employed at, um, you know, my company for 20 years, and now I have the opportunity to look for a new role. Here's what I bring to the table. If you know anybody that's looking for this kind of person, and people are doing a great job, really telling their own story and networking out here. And again, I think I'll get into this a little bit more, but follow the companies that you're interested in and join those networking groups. Yeah. So there's lots of groups on LinkedIn and Facebook about women in Wichita, or women professionals, or um, on LinkedIn, there's HR managers and HR professionals, and HR has a um, Society of Human Resource Management that I follow. I mean, there's so many groups that support each other and talk about the roles that you're looking for. And LinkedIn learns who you are just like any other social media. So the more things that you follow to let LinkedIn know who you are and what you're looking for, the more your news feed will be filled with those kinds of things. And when you do the open to work, you'll get um, the job stuff where it'll have job suggestions for you too. So and then again, after applying for a position, follow those companies on LinkedIn and see who you know at that company that you can reach out to. So um, maybe Cargill has an opening and I just applied for it. So then I go to Cargill on LinkedIn and I follow their page. And they're a nationwide company, so maybe there's a Cargill Wichita page. I don't know if that's true, but I would see if there's any other sub pages to that Cargill page, and then it might start showing me who went to Wichita State that works there, or who in my network of connections, or it might say a second connection works there, and so then I can say, okay, who's our first connection? And so, Jessica is our connection. So I'll reach out to Jessica and say, oh, I see Bob that works at Cargill. Could you mind introducing me or telling him why I would be a good fit for this role? Um, so follow the company, see who you know, and again, get into those systems directly when you in their company job page. I'm going to go back to questions now. So let's see. Travis, when it comes to categorizing um, your education on your resume, if you have multiple degrees in different fields. Oh, we answered that one. Okay, Sam, when comparing two resumes, will one with more experience always overshadow the other? No, it's the one with the right experience. So recently I was helping someone and they were looking for specific to change management. So that's kind of something specific under HR. And so we were looking at roles, and it very specifically, spelled out things that they were looking for. And so we tweaked her resume to more specifically match, because I have a generic one, and all my clients that I work with will have their generic one, and name that your name. Like, so mine is Jenna Bottolfsen 2020. But then if I'm applying to a specific role, let's say that change management one, I would say, I might do J Bottleson CM, or something that reminds me that that's one specific to change management. And there's one specific to leadership and development. So I might do that on my resume, and I would tailor those accomplishments to read, word for word what they're looking for. So the right experience will probably always overshadow more experience. Kevin says, any tips for negotiating salary and benefits? That'd be a whole nother thing. But I would say this about that. This is your only chance to do that. Once you're in, it's going to be hard to ask for more vacation or more money. So don't be afraid of asking for it up front. My husband is an engineer, and he was recently, well, I guess it's been about a year that he started at a new company. And so they gave him, and I said, aren't you going to ask for more? He's like, oh, this is pretty great. I was like, this is your only chance. He's like, well, I don't want to blow it. I don't want them to, I don't want them to pull back their offer. I'm telling you guys, they're never going to pull back their offer because you ask for more money. I mean, if it's a $50,000 job offer and you ask for 100, they might say, well, looks like we're too far apart, and they might walk away. But it's never going to hurt you to say, based on my experience and skills, want to bring to the table, I was thinking closer to 55. I mean, the worst they're going to say is no. The best thing they can do is come up to 55, and anything else in the middle that they come up is gravy. So I would always say that you only get that one chance at the beginning and when you apply to ask for more. So be sure to do that. Avery says, where do you start when looking for networking groups? So again, because I'm in HR, I will just tell you that I follow some hashtags too. So LinkedIn works a lot like Instagram. So you can go out there and follow, I think, 5 or so hashtags. So maybe leaders in marketing or marketing management, or, like HR management, leadership and development, business strategy, whatever those 5 hashtags are, you can follow those. And so whether you find the person or the company that you want to follow, you can follow those hashtags, and then you can start to maybe learn different people or companies that you want to follow. Um, so, and they'll help you find the networking groups too. And then it'll say start to learn you, and it'll start to tell you suggested for you type stuff. Maya, does using buzzwords and commonly used phrases on your LinkedIn resume show experience make your profile more appealing rather than using? I don't. So maybe. I mean, again, it depends. Um, if you're using the buzzwords or the common phrases, then I mean, people might be able to start recognizing that. Um, I would lean towards showing off my unique traits and skills. I mean, when I'm coaching someone how to make a marketing strategy for their business, I always say, think of your 3 uniques. What does your company bring that other companies don't? What are your 3 uniques? So I would always opt for telling who you are and what you bring to the table over using generic buzzwords, because people will recognize that. Bree says, I was taught that you shouldn't connect with anyone on LinkedIn that fits your job interest if you don't have any sort of personal. No, I don't agree with that. If I was applying to, again, Cargill, and maybe I start, and this, it depends on what kind of person you are. Don't do anything out of your comfort zone. But if I was applying at Cargill and I had a really rocking, um, resume or experience or classes, I might start looking at Cargill and who's a recruiter and connect to them. Now they might not connect back with you because they get so overwhelmed, but it's a good way to network with people. And some people won't connect back, and that's okay. Especially recruiters, they get thousands of connection requests a day. I mean, really, they get a lot. But no, especially if someone's a second connection that works at a company that you're interested in, I wouldn't hesitate to reach out. Now it doesn't mean they'll connect back, but I think it's fine. Um, Sasha says, does having your own website make a big difference when looking for a new job? I think that depends on what your website is. So if you are a creative person that has a lot of work to show off, then for sure that would make a huge difference. Would the recruiter take the time? I don't know. I don't know. It depends on, if it's a kind of job where 1,000 people are applying or 5 people are applying. But like I said, I have seen more and more as I coach people to search for jobs, that they do have a place for a URL. So if you have stuff to show off, I would definitely put that someplace where you can um, show it off in a URL, like on a web page. Um, so let's keep moving on here. So a few other things. I remember when I was recruiting at I was university recruiting for Spirit Aerosystems, and I remember part of my job was to take former interns out or whatever, and so we'd be at dinner and they'd say, well, I heard that if you put white words along the margins of your resume, it will come up to the top faster than someone else. So these guys were mechanical engineers by degree, but they were looking for a stress engineer position. So all along the margin, they're right. Stress engineer, mechanical engineering. And I said, that doesn't work. And a lot of times it either won't pick it up or it would throw out the resume altogether because it's got words in the margin that are confusing the system. So when we talk about keyword search, when a job is posted and they say, again, I can't say this enough, the requirements of that job are the words they're searching for. And a lot of times when it says you must have 10 years of experience and this kind of degree and whatever, a lot of times that's going to be the direct questions it asks you after you apply. Are you eligible to work in the United States? Do you have 10 years at this? Do you have this degree? And yes, no, yes, no. And then it can kick you out immediately. I want to talk about that for a second because I have so many friends that are frustrated and clients that are frustrated right now because you apply and you just go into the abyss. Um, and I think that's not right. Uh, when I ran the applicant tracking system at Koch, we had and I'm just caveating that they have a new system since I worked there. So I'm not saying this will happen for you, but when I worked there, every person that applied got an answer. So if you got kicked out right away because the five knockout questions is what we would call it, would say, do you have this degree? Do you have these years of experience? Do you have experience with, Microsoft Suite or whatever it is that's separating the people that qualify for the role that don't? If you failed those knockout questions, it would automatically send you a note that says, thank you for applying. You don't fit our criteria. Please come back and check our page again, blah, blah, blah. But at least you would know right away that you were kicked out from the running. And then as you progress through the system, so maybe 500 people apply, but only 100 pass those five questions. So then they go on to the next step, which means where recruiter is actually reading those resumes. Then they might separate it down to a top 10 to pass on to the hiring manager. As soon as they dispositioned those 90 and said, nope, I'm not moving these forward, the system would kick out a note. And if I ran the world, everybody's company would have that turned on their job boards, but they don't. And it makes job seeking very frustrating right now. I know people who have applied to 2 roles a day and haven't heard anything. And it is frustrating. And I apologize for that. As a recruiter from everywhere, I apologize for that because I think that's a crummy way to do it. But um, so I would hope that they would all start turning that on. So just a side note rant, I guess. Artificial intelligence in recruiting. I'll talk about that a little bit. So again, they're looking for you as much as you're looking for them. And so what AI and recruiting is doing right now, some of the trends that people are, companies are looking into is, so I'm looking for a very specific type of engineer that can do, FAA certified aircraft something. So they're learning, where do those people read? What do those people do online? Where do those people search? And then they're advertising there. So when you hear about artificial intelligence in recruiting, it's not some secret scary robot. I mean, basically it's just like all the other social media. It's learning who are our best people in these roles. So then how do I identify who the best candidates will be? And I'm going to market directly to those people. So that's basically all it is when they're talking about artificial intelligence and recruiting. They're looking for who are the best, so if they're looking for entry level, straight out of college, they're going to say, who are the most successful people in these roles straight out of college? Okay, well, there's someone who's had a job already. There's someone who belongs to XYZ organization, or they are someone who reads this column online every Monday or whatever, and they're just going to go market to you. So as we're learning more about the people who succeed in the roles, they're finding out who they are, what they do, and that's how they're marketing to those kinds of people. So that's basically what that is. Online assessments. So I was about, oh gosh, 2 years ago, I applied for a role, and I swear it was a Myers-Briggs assessment. And, there's no way really to fake that. I'm who I am. And so they're going through asking me all these questions. And I'm like, well, I'm an extroverted feeling, you know, outgoing person, and they're going to know that right away. And so if they're looking for an introverted rule follower, I'm probably going to get kicked out. So a lot of times when they're doing online assessments, they can be those personality profiles because they might be looking for someone with a very specific, or they might feel that, successful candidates in that role match this kind of type. Sometimes if it's in the banking world or financial world, those online assessments may have to do more with um, your financial background and asking you personal questions of that nature. I mentioned that my brother was an engineer, and his he recently entered the job seeking market, and he was asked to solve a few problems. Kind of like, okay, so if you're a software guy who looks for bugs, they gave him a problem, see how, I don't know if it was speed or accuracy or what their criteria was, but there's lots of different online assessments now. And I wouldn't say that those are in the beginning stage, but as you get further into the role, maybe top three candidates. I do know a friend of mine was applying for an HR position for, I think it was a school board. And one of the things the top three candidates had to do was propose a new benefits package to the faculty or something. I mean, it was a tough problem. So online assessments can range anywhere from personality tests to problem solving to really asking about your background. And so the best I can advise you there is just be very transparent in who you are, because there's not, if you're looking for the right answer is going to be, who you are. So do those to the best of your ability. And then video interviewing. Gosh, you guys, this is such a new thing and it's so exciting, and especially for this year. There are a couple of things, and I'm going to open it up for questions after this because I know there'll be lots of discussion here. But I would sit in a quiet room with a plain background with, and I mean, this is my office, so I don't have anything more exciting than this. But I would sit in a room with good lighting. I have a light behind my computer that's shining on my face so that it's brighter. Stay still, dress for the interview, just like if you were going to the person, um, going in person. There's been a lot of jokes about people dressing for the part up here and then wearing their boxer shorts and their slippers. I've done that once and I didn't feel as professional. So, what makes you feel comfortable and professional? Go all in on that. So, wear your, suit jacket just as if you were doing it in person. Good lighting, quiet room. You guys, I've also seen where people are doing it on their phone and they're walking around their house. Do you know how annoying that is? I mean, you've seen the TikToks when someone's walking around and they're talking and running around their room or doing a lot of things. So don't do that. Sit down, hold still, keep this camera steady, or on whatever device that you're on. Have a professional background, not your crazy posters in the background or people running around. I had a presentation earlier this year where I had a teenage son walk behind me with no shirt on, so thinking, who's this naked guy? So be somewhere where you're all in, all professional, and it's a quiet, a busy Starbucks would not be a place to do a video interview. There's a couple of different kinds of video interviews. One where it's live, where someone will ask, be chatting with you just like this. But some that we implemented at Koch, we recorded 3 questions. And then it was just a way for the recruiter to narrow down the top candidates before passing it on to the hiring manager. So they would say, explain a time where blah, 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 or tell me about your experience in whatever. So some of them you can practice. You can, you know, push record, watch it, edit it, go back and redo it. But some of them you get one shot. So you better know which kind you're going into, whether you have the opportunity to record it a couple of times or if you get the one and done. The other thing, I think that's all I was going to talk about there. So I'll open that up for questions because I know there's probably a lot now. Um, Jane says, when applying for jobs, is it important to consider a company's LinkedIn presence? Is it a red flag if a company doesn't have an active LinkedIn presence? Um, Yes and no. I've seen, in my role currently, I've been working with a lot of small business owners, and it's just not a priority. I mean, a lot of these small business owners are getting into the business because they love what they do, and marketing or HR are not their strong suits. So if it's a small company here locally, um, and again, like a construction company, that's probably not a priority. If they're a marketing firm or PR firm or something like that, I would be leery of that. So I think that all depends on what kind of company you're looking for. A lot of times too, in people that I've been assisting lately, it's a company that has a small presence in Wichita, but it's a nation or even a global company, and their global um, LinkedIn doesn't really have anything to do with or doesn't give you a lot of information on the Wichita presence of that company. Um, but if it doesn't feel right and you don't find a web page and you don't find a LinkedIn page, then be careful what information you're giving to them. What are some good questions to ask during an interview? Oh gosh, this is why I also say we'll follow them on LinkedIn because they'll put recent news. So I'll tell you guys, this is one of the biggest things as a recruiter that I loved. And this is one thing, if you get to the interview phase, and this little thing was more about, getting into be interviewed. But if you get to the interview part, one thing that will stand you out more than anybody else is asking good questions at the interview. So when you follow them on LinkedIn and you see a press release or whatever that they broke ground on a new site or they closed something or they had a leadership change, bringing that up in the interview will set you apart miles and miles from other candidates. I had students at a career fair say, oh, so Boeing company, huh? What do you do here? I'm like, what? Or what do you do at Boeing in Wichita? Okay, come on, you can Google that. You could know, what products are manufactured in Wichita versus California versus St. Louis. So asking very good specific questions about the company. Oh, I saw, your reporting earnings were up this year or this quarter over last quarter. Because the LinkedIn or a Google alert for news about that company that you're applying to will give you so much of an edge over other candidates by knowing some of their current events or what's going on in the company. So asking very specific questions about the company in the interview will always set you apart. Um, are there rights concerns as employees we should look out for when job searching? Yeah, so if you have someone that's starting to talk to you, they can ask you if you have a reliable way to get to work. So if there's a bus stop outside of your house and there's a bus stop outside, I mean, they don't have to you don't have to tell them if you have a car or not, and they can't ask you that. But if you have reliable transportation to work, they can ask you that, and they may, and you don't have to say, "Well, I don't have a car, but my mom promised that she," it's a yes or no question. So never give up more than you need to. And you can look on the web and search different things that they're allowed to ask you. They can't ask you anything that's, considered a protected class. So I'm never going to talk about, and nor should anyone ever ask me about my marital status, about my children, um, about my home life. I mean, those should just not be questions. And if they're starting to dig into that stuff, it's not got the integrity of a place that you want to be working. Um, so I would always see that as a red flag if they're starting to say, well, with the way the world is right now, you're probably homeschooling a couple of kids. How's that? They can't ask that. And so, so I would stay away from talking about those kinds of things in an interview. And if they start to ask you that, then they're overstepping. Here's a couple things as a recruiter I would want you to know. Again, a simple 1 or 2 page resume, bulleted, highlighted with accomplishments. Um, Again, look up those people when you get to the interview panel. So, a lot of times when you um, are invited for an interview, it'll say, you'll be speaking with Susie, the head of marketing, and Bob, the head of recruiting, and Jane, the person that you'll be directly reporting to. You could connect with them on LinkedIn. You can look up who they are, what they do, what their job experience is. I met with someone recently, and they obviously had looked me up on LinkedIn before because we talked about all the things we had in common, and where I went to college and experiences that I had. I also had someone, because at the very bottom of my LinkedIn, I say that I volunteer at the Girl Scouts, and it was um, last March. And of course, it was the height of cookie season. I had cases and cases of cookies at home with my daughter being in Girl Scouts. And of course, the world had kind of shut down. And so they were like, "Oh, I see that you volunteer as a troop leader. Do you have any cookies I can buy?" I was like, "Oh, hallelujah." So I got to offload some cookies, but you never know how somebody connects with you, and so or how you will connect with someone. So look at what you have in common, or where you maybe went to school or past jobs. You never know what's going to give you that edge. Um, Again, can't say this enough. Tailor your resume to the jobs and match the skills and experiences to the requirements part of the job posting, and apply with a sense of urgency. So, most places, when they have a job opening, even if they have an internal candidate in mind, they're going to have to post that for 5 days on the web externally. And so, if you see something on Tuesday and you think, okay, over the weekend, I got to fix my resume and then I'll apply for that on Monday, it could be gone. So, apply with a sense of urgency, because 5 days is the minimum they post those. And you don't know if you're seeing it on the first day or the fifth day. So, apply with a sense of urgency. Um, Now we can just open it up for questions. That's all I had as far as a presentation, but I have loved the interaction. So um, we'll open it back up for some more questions, and then um, go from there. I don't see any new ones coming in, but again, I have loved, loved, loved the interaction. So thank you so, so much. I've enjoyed being here today. I hope you've all learned something, and have a great Com Week.